Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just after close on Tuesday, April 27th. Today we're going to look at Shopify and basically look at a micro and a macro chart in the reverse order that I just said it. So first we're going to look at the macro chart, meaning the 3-month, 2-hour chart, to get a sense if you're doing like a longer swing trade or sort of an investment strategy. And then we're going to look at the micro chart, which will be the 5-day, 5-minute chart, in case you are day trading, short-term swing trading, that sort of thing. Before we get started, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And as always, though I don't always say it, I guess, if you hear banging or screaming or what have you, I have small children and I cannot always control what goes on in the house. Let me say, I can never control what goes on in the house. So you might just hear that stuff in the background. I'll do my best to edit it out, but hopefully it's not too distracting if it comes through. All right, Shopify. So, looking at this 3-month, 2-hour chart, there's a couple of things that strike me. Like one, there's obviously this like downtrend from this high up around 1500, a couple of months back. But I think there's two ways to interpret this. There is sort of like the more bullish interpretation, which would say this was the downtrend, okay, and that this downtrend was broken with this recent push from like beginning of April, basically. The other possible interpretation is you extend that out and just include this high, which would then include all of the price action underneath. The reason I would maybe say it's different is because if you kind of look at like this, what do I want to say? If you want to look at like this channel here and how that interacted with the attempt for it to build an uptrend here. Okay, so basically it hit this bottom right at about 1024, tried to make a bunch of higher lows, kind of lost steam, and then in this channel area, it got pushed down to a lower low, all the way down to almost 1,000. So the difference that I see this time is it once again is making this push to like make a bunch of higher lows, right? And then it did then form a channel to push down pretty fast and pretty hard. But now the question becomes, at the point where Shopify is right now, which is right here, are we going to see another push down and make a lower low than this 1005 of right here? My assumption, this is just purely charts, it would be no. That now we're going to start building a bit of an uptrend and a retracement rather than something that looks similar to this, where it looks like we're breaking out of it, but then we actually end up making a lower low. I think that this white, I'm going to get rid of all of these because I'm going to show you what I think is actually happening. I think that this white downtrend being here is correct, and that the breakout that happened at the beginning of April is correct. I do then think that there's a gap here that has now come down and been filled. And then I do think there's a gap up here that could bring you to about 1347. That is a good like first upper price target. Not first upper price target, sorry. A nice upper price target to gauge for. Something around there, 1346, 1347, something that fills that gap. So that's what I would say is happening at the moment. And what you're going to want to look for is for Shopify to establish this trend line here. So you see the nice thing about this one is it made this low here, this most recent bounce, actually is in line with that very quick retest of support after it hit that most recent lowest low. So that's what's leading me to believe that that lowest low and then a quick retest where it made a slightly higher low was actually the beginning of a breakout. So even though there's this big retracement back down after it hit this 1254 area a couple weeks ago, because it bounced in line with these higher lows previously, this is going to lead me to make the hypothesis that it's going to continue to make higher lows. So even if it continues back down, it looks like it's going to make almost a sad face. It will probably stop short and hold this uptrending support line here. So this is what you're going to want to look for if you are looking to take a bullish position, or if you have a position and you're looking for bullish sympathy from the chart. You're going to want it to hold that upward trend line right there. Took a little sip of my water. So that's what I would say from the sort of like trend line areas. If you're looking for prices and targets to sort of sustain you, I would look at like a cautionary zone here. So there's a couple of like nice tight things happening, I guess, is the other thing if you do take a position. There's a cautionary zone there. And then there's like, if you wanted to keep a really tight cut loss, you could go right there, I think, if it gets stuck under that 1087. If you wanted to go a little bit more, give it some more wiggle room on your cut loss, I would say you're something right around here. But the problem there is you're going to lose any semblance of like, I guess my question would just be like, if you're holding down to that 1047, like what are you holding for? In other words, like if you're stop lossing at that 1087, it would have already lost this green uptrend support, right? So big like factor there, like big negative factor there, losing that green uptrend support and then hitting your stop loss at like below 1087. If you're holding all the way down, you're just sort of losing $40 a share more. But I don't really know like on what basis you'd want to hold down there, like because what's happening that's going to make it have a big bounce at 1047, But, if you really want to do, or maybe you have a great cost basis and you've been buying this from way back when it dipped a while back, and so your cost basis is really low, okay, then I could kind of understand it. So I talked myself through that. But otherwise, if you do have like a newer position or something, that would be my take on those things. And full disclosure here, I don't have a position in Shopify. This is the first time looking at the Shopify chart, to be honest with you. So that's what I look for on the downside: cautionary zone, stop loss, deeper stop loss if you wanted to suffer it down there. Green uptrend support is what you'd be looking for it to hold. Price target on the upside, 1346, is what I'd really be looking for it to fill that gap. It's probably going to have some struggle like around this area, like all this topping out, and then previous support here will probably be a tough one, 1013. Its most immediate support zone is not that cautionary zone. It's actually going to be this. But then I'd be careful because it's also eating up a bunch of, it's topping out right where it's had all of this previous topping out too. So it's really got to bounce hard. It's either got to get support at that 1173 or it's got to bounce hard off that 1136 and jump up. I think, what you're really going to be wanting is to see it quickly get into, where am I going here? Like this zone right here is where you're maybe going to start to feel a little bit more secure, because it would have made higher highs there. It would have gotten over this other area where like previous support, just shy of support, resistance topping out here. So you're going to want it to get over there. And then if you're looking for additional upper price targets after that, I'd go something like this. If it does prove to be filling some gaps, I would look for it to fill this gap, which would bring it up to about 1425, say, somewhere around there. But then it's going to have like a sticky area here for sure. This whole area is a little bit of like a bunch of topping out, bunch of stuff going on. So it's got it's got a road to travel to get back to 1500, but that's what I would see chart wise. So, pause it here if you want to sort of like take a screenshot of this or something. That shows all the price targets and shows the, that white box of safe haven. And again, that white box just sort of indicates that the uptrend is continuing, meaning it's making higher highs. So, all right, so screenshot it there. I'm going to delete this and we're going to do the indicators. So let's take a look at the indicators here. Let's just do it reset back to 3 months. So we got the full 3-month picture. And let's go with the MAs. MAs are looking, it still is like, it's like, and it's bounce territory basically on the 180. The 180 is about 156. So it's like seeing if it can bounce off of there essentially. The 12 just crossed over the 20, so that's slightly bullish. The 12 and the 20 just crossed over the 50, so that's a good sign. So it's looking like it wants to flip everything and get everything in order. Like everything was in order here. 12 was on top of the 20, 20 was on top of the 50, 50 was on top of the 180, but it couldn't hold it for very long. So this is going to be the question with Shopify. On the MACD, okay, so bullish momentum really clearly picking up. Looking like, it's kissing right now. It's making the kissy face pattern on the MACD with the signal line. So let us see. I mean, bullish momentum is picking up. That's true. But for taking an entry at the moment, I would wait to see what happens because I think there's a good chance you get a bit of a dip here because the bullish momentum has died down. But if we take into account the most recent pushes on the histogram, they are getting bigger. So good sign there. And yeah, the bearish momentum is like all but gone at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see if the next one is like just a blip like this one, or if it starts to grow and gets, bigger and looks like this or like this, and maybe starts to introduce some additional bearish momentum into the mix. So if it were me, I would wait to see what's going to happen with this crossover. Yeah, to see if there's another push to be had there. Also, 1143 to 1119. Nope, we're clear. Okay, no, I think we're fine. Let's see if there was bearish divergence there. RSI is actually not that high. It's pretty mid-range, especially after having such a big push. And, it spent a lot of time in oversold territory here. So for it to get its bearings and to get to overbought, it would be nice to see it come down and sort of do this kind of thing like it did, or even like this kind of thing, where it just kind of got over 70 and then dipped just to about mid-range and then made another push up into overbought and then came mid-range again and then pushed again to overbought. So that gives you a bunch of chances to like ride some solid price strength up. Okay, so that's going to be our micro. So, our macro. If you're looking for the micro, we're going to start that now. So go 5-day, 5-minute chart looks like this. And so let's start out with the charting and then we'll go to the indicators afterwards. So no real clean channel forming here. I mean, this is like a day's worth of price activity. It could be a little bit channelish, but it's too steep on the bottom and not steep enough on the top. So top's kind of flattening out where the bottom's still rising. So it's not going to be a very clean look at a channel, in my opinion. So we don't have that going for us. What it looks like to me is, if anything, we just have essentially a bunch of price targets that we can look at for like support and resistance zones. So that should be your like most immediate level of support. If you wanted to look down, you're going to have here, and you're going to have about here on the downside. Actually, you'll have one here too. All right, so this gives you a bunch of areas where, like, if you're going short term and you want to look for, stop losses, like on these bottom two or something, and then like cautionary zone on this one, and then immediate support on the one above. You could look at it like that. on the upper side, that's definitely going to be a tough area, that 1162. So you're going to want support there if you're going to be able to ride some price strength up. And then you got, these are like really small percentage changes. These are woefully kind of close together, unfortunately, which is the same situation as yesterday with Palantir. But that's where you're going to be looking for, like that's where I would see the upside going. And then, if it can get 1174 support there, I would just sort of take a new look at the chart. My hope would be, trying to see which way we could go here. If we start to get some higher highs up in here, we could potentially put a channel in. I'll show you if a channel does form. I'll show you about what I would expect it to look like. Someday I'll show you guys how I make these kind of like hypothetical channels that actually perform pretty well a lot of times. I would expect it to look something like this. Yeah. All right, so if we are going to form a channel here, I would expect it to look something like that, which means that we're like mid-range to upper area of the channel right now. So this could easily give us a dip toward that 1154 bounce, but should keep us out of the cautionary and stop loss zones. So that's if this is going to form a channel, which this is not me saying that this is the channel. But if it is going to form a channel based off of today's price activity in the 5-minute chart, this would be the channel that it would form. If not, then there's just not a channel forming, which is also fine. And if that basically ends up to be the case, what I'll be looking for is putting in like a flagging out pattern, which would be like the trend line coming down here off the highs and sort of capturing those highs and then pushing something toward, like this cautionary zone. So like what's going to happen as it flags out there. But I would hope that that's not what's going to happen, because those are much more unpredictable than the channel. Almost everything is more unpredictable than a channel. So I guess, here's your chance to take a snapshot or pause here if you want to take a look at this, jot anything down, commit it to memory, whatever you may do. And then I'll make a note to myself after this to, someday I'll show you all how to make these hypothetical channels. The big advantage there is then if it confirms, you essentially can get it on the channel before it's like discernible. And so then it just gives you additional time to play a channel as it's forming versus waiting for it to be fully formed. All right, let's get rid of these and let's reset to our 5-day here. Though I will immediately mess it up because I will certainly zoom in and zoom out. But our MAs are looking pretty cluttered right now. They're definitely not all lined up. They're kind of like in this weird coiling pattern like they kind of did here, where they just like couldn't get away from each other. But that can sometimes have this like Bollinger Band kind of effect where the coiling up of the MAs leads to a volatile breakout. But the problem is that can be in either direction. So you also see it here, coiling up of the MAs and then a breakout, but the breakout was down and kind of got them some distance. They coiled up again and then they broke out again. So kind of like waited for the 180 to catch up and coil down here and then had a big push out. So it's coiling up again. So, on your bullish hopes, you would hope that it's coiling up and then it's going to have another big run up. As you see here, it could definitely coil for a day or two or more, of course, but something to look at. On the MACD, big, nice crossover there. So, this is going to be pretty repetitive from what I just said. So basically the MACD is also just kind of flattening out, which is reminiscent of or equivalent to the coiling up, the tightening of the Bollinger Bands, the tightening of the MAs, all gathering on top of each other or together alongside each other. And then all of the bullish and bearish momentum being sucked out of the price activity is just kind of building up some potential energy, essentially, in order to make its next big move. Problem is, we don't know how long that will take. But what I would look for is the MACD, the yellow line, to make a sharp move one direction or the other. That's going to be your best bet. Like you see here, this was a good run up. This started with this really sharp move right here. See how it kind of forms a corner right here and shoots up? That's what you want to see. And then a pretty sharp downturn here. These sort of more lackadaisical, like rounded edges kind of thing, you want to see a corner. The sharpness in the move of that MACD is what could indicate that coiling up is coming to an end, and whatever the sharp move that it's going to make up or down is commencing, and the MACD will initiate in that direction. The RSI, we're mid-range, so nothing, to really write home about there. Let's see if it does have any. Yeah, I mean, the RSI, this might be one of those situations where it's like the RSI, just isn't that impactful for this stock. I mean, you saw it was overbought here, right? And then it continued moving up and the RSI was dying down a little bit, but then it continued to move up and the RSI was still overbought. So, yeah, this doesn't appear, I mean, I'm not going back super far, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But just looking at the last couple of days, this hasn't been a great indicator for what you would consider as a buy or sell signal. So I wouldn't even take it that seriously, to be honest. So I'd rely more on the MACD, making the sharp move, those MAs that are coiling up, waiting for them to unbunch and see which way they unravel, a bullish or bearish formation, and go from there. All right, well, that is Shopify. I hope anyone who's in this, I hope you have good luck with it. I hope that, some of these ideas help. And I hope everyone's week is off to a good start, no matter what you're trading. All right, well, that'll do it for this video. I appreciate you all watching and sharing, and I will see you in the next video.